Hello and welcome back to the OTB channel. Now, a few weeks ago I looked at Endeavour OS, an Arch-based Linux distro that's becoming increasingly popular, and the video did really well. One of the questions, though, that kept cropping up amongst viewers is, so what should I try? Should I try Endeavour or should I try Manjaro, which of course is another incredibly popular Arch distro? So it would have been remiss to just leave that question hanging. So today I'm going to look at Manjaro XFCE and ask, is it the best? See you after the intro. Okay, welcome back. So, Manjaro Linux. I wasn't going to do this today. I had in mind today to do something about DWM, which I will have to postpone until next week. Because after releasing that Endeavour video a few weeks ago, I got so many people saying, well, is it better or worse than Endeavour, in Manjaro, should I say? And which is the best one to kind of start with, Manjaro or Endeavour, if I wanted to dip my foot in the Arch Linux pool? And it's a difficult question to answer because there is no best Linux distro. There is no best Arch Linux distro, other than, I suppose, Arch itself. But what the Arch Linux distros, the ones based on it, tend to do is they tend to provide an easy way to install, and they provide a few useful tools that can make life easier when you're maintaining an Arch system. Now, I was pretty open about my biases. I like Endeavour. That's my favourite because it stays quite close to Arch, probably closer to Arch than any others. And I essentially want a distro that's going to act as a vehicle for me to install my window managers. So I'm a DWM user. That's essentially what I'm going to use most of the time rather than a desktop environment. So I'm not particularly concerned about theming or features. I'm just looking for an easy install. Simple as that. So that's a subjective view. It's best for me. It doesn't mean that's Endeavour is best for me. It doesn't mean that Endeavour's best for you. You may prefer Arch. I've used both. I ran Manjaro as well on my X220 for about 6 months before it got wiped and taken over by Slackware, and I had no problems with it whatsoever. It's just like any other Arch distro. But let's take a look at it, and I'll tell you what triggered me about this. DT DistroTube did a video the other day where he was looking at top 5 Linux distros, and he only marked Endeavour down at number 4 and Manjaro at number 1. Well, again, I've got this issue about which is best. It's a subjective opinion. Manjaro probably has more users than Endeavour, although I think number 4 for Endeavour was a little unfair, personally. And Manjaro has been around longer, and admittedly it's probably done more than any other distro to popularise Arch in recent years. So I thought, well, I've got to look at it, haven't I? Let's see what Manjaro is all about. Let's show you the distro in action, in VirtualBox, of course, and you make your own choice. You can then compare my 2 videos. Yes, by the way, I always do my reviews in VirtualBox, and a few people have said, why don't you install on hardware? And it's worth saying that there's a reason for that. If I was to install a distro on, say, one of my ThinkPads, an X220, and everything went well, what you see is an installation on an X220. It doesn't mean, just because I've installed on hardware, your hardware will act in exactly the same way. So given that, VirtualBox is just as good a way of showcasing a distro as any other. Anyway, that aside, let's go and have a look at the Manjaro webpage, and then we'll boot a copy up and we'll install it. So here we are at the Manjaro web page, and I've opened up the downloads page. And one thing that you'll find immediately with Manjaro is, unlike Endeavour, where you'll install one edition and then you can install lots of different environments by doing an online install and choose your poison. You get different ISOs here with Manjaro. So you're presented first of all with XFCE, which is the one that I've downloaded and installed simply because I like XFCE. That's what I use with Endeavour, so it gives us a like-for-like comparison. But you could choose Plasma, you could also choose GNOME, and it's worth saying that there are also a number of community editions. So you've got Budgie, Cinnamon, Deepin, i3, I've tried i3 actually, Mate, Sway, okay, which I believe is the version of i3 essentially that works with a Wayland compositor. So you've got quite a choice. So choose your poison. There's also on the web page a section called Fresh and Stable, which talks about Manjaro's philosophy, and this is really what influences my decision. Rather than running directly off the Arch repos, Manjaro is quite cautious, and they hold packages behind until they are confident that they have no bugs. They do have a fast-track process for updates, especially security updates, but you're not going to get the very latest cutting-edge packages at the time when they're issued in the Arch repos. It's fast, powerful, and lightweight, as it says. However, it's aimed at the more experienced or technically minded. This is Arch it's talking about. And latest software can come with some problems. Okay, yeah, experienced users can fix those problems, but some users don't have enough of this expertise or just don't want to figure everything out to get things working. So to prevent those problems, Manjaro adds additional layers of testing to the Arch repos. And normal packages go through those additional layers until the Manjaro devs are happy that, they're stable enough for including in their repos. So this is the big thing that differentiates the likes of Endeavour from Manjaro. Manjaro is seen to be a little bit more stable for an Arch distro. It's still rolling, but it's rolling cautiously, hence the name of this video. And for me, this is the thing which kind of pushes me in the direction of Endeavour, simply because I haven't found Arch to be that unstable. And so I prefer to use the Arch repos directly. However, when I've used Manjaro, I've had no problems with it either. If you'd like that extra layer of testing that takes place just to make sure there are no problems, Manjaro may well be the one for you. Anyway, without further ado, I've downloaded XFCE, the XFCE version by torrent. Let's fire it up in VirtualBox and go and see what it's all about. So here we are, we've booted into the Manjaro XFCE ISO. I didn't show you the initial grub screen, but it's worth saying that it's slightly different, the Manjaro grub screen, than many other distributions, in that it gives you the option to set your locale and your language and whether or not you want to boot with non-free or free drivers only. So you make your selections and boot in, and this is where I got to. It didn't initially go to 1920 by 1080 in VirtualBox, but I was able to go into the settings and just adjust that without any problem whatsoever. So we'll go through the interface once it's installed, but let's get it installed. First of all, you'll see an installation icon there on the desktop, which I'm expecting to bring up Calamaris. We will run through this pretty quickly because, to be honest, once you've seen Calamaris once, you've pretty much seen it all. It's already chosen British English, presumably because that's what I set on the grub screen. It's got the locale correctly. It's got my keyboard correctly. And what do I want to do? Do I want to erase the disk or do manual partitioning? Well, I'm going to go for erase the disk. I notice here, and I like to see this on Calamaris, not all Calamaris are equal. Some of them don't offer you this option. But you can go with no swap, swap, no hibernate. So if you're just going to suspend a disk and you're not actually going to hibernate the computer, swap with hibernate, which is going to create a bigger swap partition, or you can just do it to a file. My default, I must admit, is swap no hibernate, simply because I do suspend to disk and I like a little bit of swap. But to be honest, sometimes I don't go with any swap at all, and certainly on this virtual machine, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to encrypt my system, but I have the option there, so I'm just going to hit next and enter my normal username and my password. Use the same password for the admin account. I tend to do that as a matter of course. I don't like logging in automatically, but if you prefer that, well, go for it. This is what it's going to do. All looks good to me. It's just creating a single ext4 partition and install now. So we'll come back once this is finished. So that's the installation complete, no problems whatsoever, and only took a couple of minutes. And here we are, we're presented with the login screen, which I think is like DM. But hey, let's just log in and see where we get to. And it helps if I make sure that my mouse is captured. I seem to do that every time. You'd think I'd be used to it by now. And we can see that the Manjaro XFCE screen is loading, and there comes the welcome screen. So far, if we were comparing this to Endeavour, quite a similar experience, installation through the Calamaris installer, and we're presented with this welcome screen afterwards. I do note that it doesn't seem to have as many sections on it, the welcome screen. For me, that's certainly not an issue. So all the little additional things like optimizing your mirrors that Endeavour gives you, this doesn't. Nevertheless, perhaps this is simpler overall. Let's just run a quick htop right from the word go to see what we're at if htop is installed. Well, with the terminal being transparent there, 622 megs. Okay, it's not dreadful. It's pretty much what I'd expect for a brand new installed version of XFCE. So we're pretty much there. So let's have a look at this welcome screen to see what it offers. I'm looking also here to see if we have any option to enable a dark theme, but I don't see one where we can just click on a button. So we have README. So this takes us through handling hardware, searching the web, looking in the forums, and gives various links to the AUR repo, the Manjaro wiki, the Arch wiki, etc., etc. It also mentions here MHWD, which I believe is included as a command line hardware detection tool. But these days, Manjaro also includes a hardware detection tool in its settings manager. So my understanding is you don't need to go to the MHWD command line tool. You can do everything from the settings manager. So, okay, release info, pretty much what we'd expect. 21.2 apparently. And with XFCE, you're running XFCE 4.16, lots of updates, etc., etc. Okay, nothing special yet. So let's have a look at the wiki, which is the next link. And I'm presuming, yes, we're going straight to the web browser. And I do like a wiki. It's always been my sort of go-to place if I just want to find out something really quickly about, I don't know, a particular aspect. So we have a nice menu down on here. Hardware, if we click on that, for instance, the Manjaro settings manager, Manjaro hardware detection, how to configure graphics cards. And it's obviously given you the CLI stuff here, MHWD. So if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you may well want to have a look here. I mean, to be honest, I've for years now only run Intel graphics, but I'm not a gamer, as you all know, so I haven't had to worry too much about those sort of things. But hey, the information's there should you need it. We have a link to the forums, which is nice, and hopefully that should open up in a minute. I know Manjaro's forums are extremely active, but you could say the same for Endeavour, to be honest. And yeah, nice and friendly, known to be a friendly forum. In fact, if you do run Manjaro or Endeavour, I'd suggest you use their forums rather than the Arch forum, which does have a reputation for being a little bit harsher, especially if you're quite new to running Arch. We then have Discover Software, and I'm not entirely sure what this is. It says it's a web resource, so let's go and see what that does. Right, okay, so it would seem to be an online resource of various applications in alphabetical order. Okay, quite nice. I do notice their Alacrity is there. Now, I use Alacrity as a terminal, and we have a plus sign there. So if I click plus, allow this site to open the web PAMAC link, always allow that. Yeah, choose application. Okay, I'm just going to open that link and see where it takes us. I could be doing this completely wrong, although the fact that it's asking me to authenticate is perhaps a good thing. I'm not getting any feedback at all from here. Oh, yes I am. Adding native package. Installation process finished. Okay. So, Alacrity Alacrity is indeed installed. I quite like that, actually. You need to know what you're looking for as it's in alphabetical order, but what an easy way to install things. Okay, great. Didn't know about that. Quite impressed. Mailing lists, well, they are what they are. Get involved, development, donate, and a big button for applications. And here we have, right, a little installer. Or I presume this is an installer where we can browse by category. So let's have a look at what browsers are installed. Currently, we've got Firefox installed. If I wanted to install, I don't know, let's say Chromium, how easy is that to do? I presume I just hit Update System. Synchronizing package databases. Yeah, so it's coming up with all the additional dependencies. Let's just hit apply and we'll let this do its stuff. Web browsers are one of those things. I used Chromium for many years, but once it lost its ability to sync passwords and bookmarks across different devices, I've now moved over to Firefox, and I find that to be pretty good. So let's have a look in the menu, under Internet, and Chromium is indeed there. Okay, so quite like this. This is a nice little, a nice, easy software management tool. What have we got there? So they've obviously kind of created a curated list. Okay, I like that. And that's pretty much all we're going to find on the welcome screen. So it's not as detailed or as expansive as Endeavour's, but I do like that Discover Software link. And I do like the little application manager. So let's just shut that down. What Manjaro also includes, and you'll see this down here on the panel, is PAMAC. And PAMAC is the graphical tool that will let you know when you have updates, and you can install software through here, and you can also update your system. I actually logged into this just before showing it you, and I didn't use the graphical application. I just did the sudo pacman syu and did it by the command line because that's what's easy for me. So the way you configure this at the moment, let's have a look at the preferences. And it asks me to enter my sudo password before I go in. So it checks for updates. You set the interval. You can set whether or not you want it to remove unrequired dependencies, etc., etc. And here's the one that matters as far as I'm concerned, third-party tools. Now, I'm noticing at the moment that the AUR is not automatically switched on here. So I can do that just by hitting that. And what do I want to do? Keep built packages, check for updates. Personally, I always select check for updates on the AUR. It's just what I use it for. You can also install Flatpaks and snaps even here, but you would have to auto-enable it. So, okay, that's good. We've now got the AUR installed. So, let's just browse. And if I look at repositories, where is the AUR? It hasn't yet appeared. I don't know why that is really, but let's search for Yay. Oh, it's in the official repositories. It's not installed at the moment, or it's in the official Manjaro repositories, but I like to install Yay because I like to manage my AUR packages with Yay. And the transaction is successfully finished. So let's just double check that that's now installed. So if I do a Yay SYU, okay, nothing to do because it's already been updated. But that's all good. Aha, the AUR has now appeared here, and it just crashed when I clicked on it. So let's open it up again. If I browse repositories, I wonder why I'm not seeing the AUR there. The AUR should actually be activated on this. Excuse me a minute, guys. I'm just trying to figure this one out. So, third party, yes, I've enabled AU support. Okay, so why is it not showing me the AUR here? I don't know. Interesting, but I've obviously got Yay installed now, so I can manage the AUR through that. We might as well stay on the panel and have a look. What have we got here? As well as PAMAC, we have our networking. What is this that we've got here? Clipman, okay. And we have here MSM Notifier. Oh, and this is going to be our kernel package where we can see what kernel we've got installed, and we can quickly choose different kernels from the list here. I see that we're running Linux 5.15.12, okay, which is quite a recent one. Okay, nice and easy to switch your kernels. Let's go into the menu to see what we've got by default. So accessories, bulk rename, clipboard, Ingrampa, which is obviously your archive manager, git hash, GTK hash, should I say, calculate message digests or checksums. Okay, never used it. You've got hplip, which is great, the Kvantum manager, light DM greeter settings, and a Manjaro user guide. I love user guides when a distro actually produces these. I think they're absolutely great as a source of reference. And I'm just flicking through it. What sort of things does it have here? Downloading. Well, let's have a look through the the contents page, that's probably the better. Getting Manjaro, downloading, checking the disk image, installing, booting, dual booting with Windows, assisted installation methods, manual installation on a UEFI system. Welcome to Manjaro, the Manjaro desktop, and maintaining your system. Okay, so it's some pretty basic stuff, but it's good to see. So let's go back into accessories. Is there anything else there of note? You've got Mousepad as your standard text editor. You've got your task manager, Thunar file manager, pretty much what we'd expect to see. Interestingly, Steam, I see, is installed by default, so that'll interest the gamers out there. And we've got the GIMP installed by default, which, to be honest, I always like to see. Many people think it's a little bit too much space to take up as a default application, but again, it all comes down to personal preference. I do use it, so it's good for me to see. Then we have Internet. I've just installed Chromium, clearly, and we have Firefox. Pigeon Internet Messenger. I haven't used that for, it must be over a decade. I wasn't even aware it was still a thing, but, you know, hey, if you use it, all good. And Steam and Thunderbird. Multimedia, we have Audacious to listen to your music. Your Pulse Audio volume control. Video for Linux, test utility. VLC, another of my staples. And XFburn. Now, this is the section that surprised me, to be honest. In Office, now, I just came straight into it once it was installed and did an upgrade. But whilst I was doing the upgrade, I saw that only Office was installing. I don't know if it was just an update on what was already here, but certainly after a Pac-Man update or upgrade, whatever you want to call it, I saw that only Office was installed. Now, I believe they've installed this because it has better Microsoft Office compatibility than LibreOffice, so they say. I'm not qualified to say whether that is or isn't the case, having not used it. I just think it's an unusual decision to go for only Office rather than LibreOffice. I know that Manjaro got in all sorts of trouble for choosing another Office suite a while ago, a few years ago, over LibreOffice. I don't know if it was this only Office, but anyway, at the end of the day, you can always uninstall this and install LibreOffice if you prefer. To be honest, I don't want to get involved in any politics about this. It might be a good choice for those users who need Microsoft Office compatibility. So, all good as far as I'm concerned. Other, HP scanning tool, and then of course you have your settings and your system. Time shift is there, which is useful for backing up, of course. But let's go into the settings, and let's make this a little bit bigger. So for the most part, I'm looking at these XFCE settings, and they all look to be relatively standard to what you'd expect to see here. Firewall configuration, I'm assuming, maybe wrongly, that this will be UFW, but we'll see in a second. Yes, it is UFW that's installed. Good choice. I tend to install it anyway. We then have Manjaro notifier settings. Okay, to let you know when to notify you about new kernels. And the Manjaro settings manager. So this is perhaps the part of Manjaro that provides its own helpful tools, or scripts if you like, to ease the transition for people who may be new to Arch. And here's the thing, the hardware configuration. So you do have this command line, mhwd command that you can use for hardware detection and to install such things as NVIDIA drivers. Clearly, I'm not using NVIDIA here. But this is an automated way of doing it. You can see that it already seems to have the VirtualBox graphics adapter has been installed here, the video virtual machine. So if you have proprietary graphics cards, this will be where you want to go to start off with. We haven't looked at appearance, of course, and we couldn't kind of go without looking at this to see what wallpapers we have on offer. And I think there's quite a few here. They're still loading, actually. So let's have a look. So you have your standard Manjaro wallpapers. What's this one? I quite like that, to be honest. Oh, yeah. I do like that. I've always liked that one. I actually have that one that I use quite often. You've got the cartoony type wallpaper. And what else? Okay, you've got your standard XFCE ones there. So yeah, you have a range. You have a range of ones that you can choose. Let me just go to the main settings here, because I want to look at appearance. Where are we? Appearance. What are we actually using at the moment? We're using Matcha Say, whatever that is. Let's just open up our file manager, Thunar, and have a look and see what other options we've got. I'm looking for something a little darker. Do I want it that dark? Yeah, I don't see why not. I quite like that. I think that's quite a nice look to it. There are other darks here. Let's just have a quick look. Okay, so we're just changing the accent type. Oh no, we're changing the shade of things. Quite like that. What about icons? Papyrus Maya. What about Papyrus Dark Maya? Does that make any difference? Papyrus Dark. Papyrus Adapter Maya. E-Papyrus Dark. I tend to like the standard Papyrus icon themes, I must admit. And I would probably run it like that. I'll be honest, I'll install other themes as well. I do like a colour scheme that's based on nodes, so I tend to mix and match everything to make sure I've got something looking exactly as I want it. But okay, guys, so that's Manjaro XFCE. It's a fine desktop. Does it deserve the #1 spot? Well, let's have a chat. Right, guys, so that's Manjaro XFCE. Coming back to that question, is it the best Arch distro? It might be the best for you. And that's ultimately the only answer I can give. Endeavour is the best for me because I like the fact it uses the Arch repos directly. You may prefer that additional layer of stability. You might like the theming. You might find that your experience has been better with Manjaro than with Endeavour. A few users have said to me that they have hybrid NVIDIA graphics on a laptop and they found it easier to install the drivers with Manjaro than Endeavour. I don't know. I can't comment on that because I have no experience of doing it. So choose your poison, decide which one you want. For me, there's not a lot in it really. I can work with either. So guys, that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed the video. As normal, come and join me on Facebook, and if you'd like to support the channel, please join me on Patreon. And I would, as normal, like to thank these wonderful people you see here who are my existing patrons. Thanks very much, guys. Your support is much appreciated. And I'll see you next week, guys, with a bit of DWM goodness. Have a good weekend.